Hey Steeler Nation, welcome to your Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Stryker, and today I'm sitting in a Walmart parking lot in the freezing cold in Fort Stockton, Texas, coming to you with having to talk about Ben Roethlisberger and his unforgettable last season and willing a team that was rebuilding to the playoffs. For a man with diminished skills, still finding a way to beat Cleveland at home in his last home game, still finding a way to beat Baltimore in Baltimore for his last regular season game. Ben Roethlisberger, thank you very much for making this an exciting season. I mean, we all knew he was kind of limited in his throwing tree. He was more throwing short passes and some sideline routes down the field, but he still found a way to do it in his best way possible. And the biggest part that we have to talk about for this season is his fourth quarter comebacks. He had 7 of his 9 wins this season were in the fourth quarter or in overtime. And that's a big deal because he is now number 3 all time in fourth quarter comebacks. He's got 41 total in his career. He's only 1 behind Thomas Brady, and he's only 2 behind the league leader or the all-time NFL leader in Peyton Manning. So Ben Roethlisberger is now mentioned in the same breath, or should be, for being one of the top comeback quarterbacks of all time. Big props for him too, and I know he's excited about that stat since his all-time favorite quarterback growing up was John Elway, who was one of the all-time best clutch quarterbacks in NFL history, and a reason why Big Ben wore that number 7 to begin with. So going down through the games, I mean, he came back in Buffalo, Seattle in overtime, Cleveland the first time we played them, Chicago, Baltimore the first time we played them, Tennessee, and then Baltimore again in overtime. That was 7 of the 9 wins. And we needed all of them, plus Rudolph's tie to get to the playoffs. So thank you very much there, Mr. Rudolph. We'll see what you're doing next year. And of course, I would be lax to not mention Ben's all-time statistics being number 5 all-time in the NFL for yardage, attempts, and completions. Amazing. Absolutely amazing stats. Number 1 for a quarterback that's only played with one team, but number 5 all time for the other one. He's number 8 also in touchdowns total. So those are some great stats that are definitely going to find him in Canton when all is said and done. So now Ben is officially getting on with his life's work, as Coach Chuck Noll used to say, the Emperor. But now, what do we do? What are the Steelers going to do this year, guys? Well, got to find a new quarterback. Because I guess the first thing we'd have to figure out is the quarterback already on the roster? Will it be Mason Rudolph, who was the backup all season? Will it be Dwayne Haskins, the project that we brought in this season, who I felt did just about as good in the preseason in his first year trying to learn this system as Mason Rudolph has done in his previous 3? That makes for excellent competition if we're going to be moving forward for this year, for this next upcoming year, for 2022. Who's going to be the quarterback? That's going to be a tight competition if those are the only 2 dogs in the fight. Dobbs is another option. He's on the roster until March. I don't know if he's going to return. Really, he kind of stayed on the roster because he got injured. Looked like he was going to be cut, but since he hit the injured reserve, he was able to talk and be the man in Ben's ear the rest of the season. Ben loved Dobbs, loved his intelligence. The guy could be a quarterback's coach, no question, in this league, and kind of already has been for the last 2 or 3 years. Ben loves Dobbs, but I just don't see him having the physical traits of being able to beat out Haskins or being able to beat out Rudolph. So those are the guys on the roster. What's the other option, Stryker? Well, your other option is the pipe dream that everyone wants to think about, trading for an established quarterback. There's a lot of talk around Steeler Nation about Aaron Rodgers finding a landing spot here in Pittsburgh, about Russell Wilson finding a landing strip here in Pittsburgh, and also there's been some chatter on Deshaun Watson, which also came up last year when he was talking about wanting to be traded, waiving that trade clause. And unfortunately, though, with Deshaun Watson, he has all of those allegations against him, not just the 2 that Ben had when he had to sit out for 4 games. He has something like 26 or 27 allegations against him. Not the type of quarterback you want to bring in with that many allegations against him. Russell Wilson is probably my favorite out of all those quarterbacks. I just think he's the best team player. I think he's definitely the youngest of all of the quarterbacks, other than Watson, but he's younger compared to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is probably the best on-field quarterback of any of these that I'm talking about right now. He's always making it to the NFC Championship game. Hell of a quarterback. I wouldn't be upset if he was on the team, but I'm not sold on him being a team guy and a guy that toes the company line, as he's been pushing against Green Bay the last couple years, pushing against the coaching staff. Had some issues here about being truthful. Was he vaccinated? Wasn't he vaccinated? You know, that just brings into question to me what type of a team leader he is. So, you know, but if he is on the team, I'd be happy for it. The only problem with these options, Steeler Nation, is they are going to cost us draft picks. Multiple first rounders. Deshaun Watson was already talked about being 3. Now, it's probably going to drop a bit if these allegations are still hanging around his head neck like an albatross, because he didn't play a single game this season when he was a hell of a quarterback in the previous season. That's going to drop his asking price a little bit, in my humble opinion. But Green Bay is going to be looking for multiple firsts. Seattle's going to be looking for multiple firsts. And for a team like Pittsburgh that's on the rebuild, I just don't see them giving up multiple firsts or multiple draft picks for any quarterback, no matter how good they are. We talk about 1. If we can get 1 draft pick for a quarterback, yeah, I consider giving up 1 first rounder for one of those quarterbacks, but not going to go the multiple route. Would not go the multiple route at all. So what are the next options? Next option would be the draft. Who's in the draft, Stryker? Well, we got a guy that's playing already in the city of Pittsburgh that everybody already knows in Steeler Nation, and Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett would be a dream scenario for a lot of people. Pittsburgh transition, going from the Panthers to the Steelers in the same stadium, knows the city, knows the stadium, knows the field. It's a good story. Is it the right fit? Maybe if he drops. Again, Steelers are rebuilding. I don't think that Pickett or the quarterback class this year is a class to move up for to grab anyone. I don't want to give up any more picks for this team that is rebuilding to be able to pick somebody. I'd actually, in this position, would probably go for another position. Would probably look for BPA, best possible athlete. With what's left, cornerback, strong safety, which I think is a high need, hopefully with Edmonds leaving this offseason. Middle linebacker or offensive or defensive line, you can never have enough. Is Tyson Olualu coming back? It sounds like he is. It sounds like he does not want to end his career with an injury. Still on the books for next year. Tyson was looking to come back. Hopefully Tuitt can find his way back to this team, because I would welcome him back with open arms to have him come back and playing for this team again next year, because he's got the talent. Problem is he was just injured all season, could not make it back, and hopefully he can make it back next year. So, we talked about the draft. We talked about the trades. We talked about the roster. Now, this is my favorite option to talk about quarterbacks to bring in for next year, and that is free agency. Now, if one of those quarterbacks can get themselves fired in an Antonio Brown scenario, if Rodgers can get disgruntled fired, if Wilson can get disgruntled fired, or if Deshaun Watson gets cut because of the allegations, these guys become free agents. We don't have to give up draft picks for these guys anymore. But these are the current free agents that we are going to be talking about on coming up for this season. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a free agent, but I think he's a bit old. Love the guy. I think he's a heck of a competitor, but I don't think he's a guy to even work as a stopgap. Same thing with Andy Dalton. Same thing with Cam Newton or Tyrod Taylor, though I do like Cam Newton and Tyrod Taylor being mobile options. I think they're kind of past their prime. Now, I want to get to the two guys that I think are the best possible scenario for Steelers bringing in quarterbacks for this upcoming year. But first, I'm going to talk about two guys that are on the Steelers fans' radar, which I'm going to probably discredit. And that is Marcus Mariota and Michael Trubitsky. Those two guys are, to me, highly drafted guys, super talented guys, but guys who are now NFL backups and projects if you're looking to move them up into the system to become a starter. And the only reason why I'd steer clear of Trubisky and steer clear of Mariota is only because we already have one of those guys on our roster currently. And that is Haskins. Haskins is a highly drafted guy. Little bit of a project, trying to bring him around in a system and build him back up. I don't want to go into training camp with two projects and a backup quarterback in Rudolph. That's just too much question to me. So who would I take out of the free agent market? I got two guys that I like. Actually, I have a guy that I like, and I have a guy that I love. And the guy that I like is Teddy Bridgewater. And I think Teddy Bridgewater's put together another good season in Denver with their quarterback getting injured and going down. He still threw for 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 additional rushing. So that's 20 total touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. Heck of a season. Heck of a quality season from Teddy Bridgewater, and a guy that I could see doing some good things in our system. Now, the guy that I absolutely love is a guy that is polarizing, I guess, and with some people here at Steeler Nation as well. And that is Jameis Winston. I think he is the most talented quarterback in free agency, and he is an absolute steal at what he's ranked at being a $5 million a year quarterback. What was New Orleans this year when he was playing in those first 7 games? Come out firing 5 touchdowns in his first game. Second game against Carolina, he took a step back and threw 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. That was his only bad game this year. The rest of them, he was in the plus column for touchdowns to interception ratio. Finished the season early, unfortunately, after 7 games with his ACL injury. But he had 14 touchdowns, 1 additional touchdown rushing, 15 total, and only 3 interceptions, with those 2 coming in that second game of the season. Heck of a year. And a guy that's trending up. And this is a quarterback that's already thrown for 5,000 yards in this league, that's already thrown for 33 touchdowns in this league. 33. Ben's top year. What is Ben's top year? I am looking that up right now. For touchdowns, 34. Ben had 34 touchdowns in 2018, also threw for 5,000 that season. 33 touchdowns in 2020. But Jameis Winston also has had 30 touchdowns, and I think he was on a trend to becoming a great quarterback. His numbers were right there with Peyton Manning's. As a developmental quarterback, when he had his 30-30 season, He had the same or similar numbers to Peyton Manning in his first 5 years. That's why I want to see a quarterback like this develop underneath us in our system. I would take him in a heartbeat. He is a winner. He is now getting smarter with the ball, not throwing. He's not a one-to-one touchdown interception guy anymore. Much smarter decisions. And he was the reason why in the first half of the season, New Orleans, the Saints were a playoff contender. When he left, Bupkis, done. Stick a fork in him. They had no chance as soon as he went down. That's the guy I want in Pittsburgh, and that is my top choice for any of the options so far for this season. If we land Winston, that is my number one choice for the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Disagree with me if you want, Steeler Nation. Throw me your comments, tweet me, make sure you let me know, but that is my choice. And finishing up, the last thing that I wanted to touch base on is TJ Watt. Thank you, TJ Watt, for an insane season. Leading the league in sacks in 15 games played. One fewer than the all-time record that you tied for Michael Strahan. Still the same amount of sacks. Did it in one less game. I think you are a shoo-in for Defensive Player of the Year. The two-time should have been Defensive Player of the Year in his third season, getting it. Finally getting another Watt up there for Defensive Players of the Year. Still two more behind his brother, and they'll eventually, hopefully, catch up to them. But congratulations to TJ Watt, and for all the writers that don't like to vote for this guy, that don't really watch the Steelers, that didn't see he was the reason why they probably won 3 or 4 of those games. You got to see him in the beginning of that playoff game jump up in sky to deflect that pass straight up in the air so Devin Bush could intercept it. And then following it up on the next drive after Cam Hayward knocks that ball clean, the scoop and score for a touchdown. TJ Watt, his ability is unquestioned. If anybody doesn't vote him for Defensive Player of the Year, they just hate the Steelers, and they hate TJ Watt for some reason. So screw you, voters. It's TJ Watt or nothing this season, or I'm jumping off one of those 200 bridges in Pittsburgh, and you guys can pick the bridge. But now it's time for my favorite part of the show, questions from Steeler Nation. Come on over to SteelerNation.com. Sign up in the football forum. It's free. We ask a thread each week, and I take your questions directly from SteelerNation.com in the football forum. First question coming over from Cooley Man. Man, it would be awesome if you could address some issues that are never talked about around here. Firing Tomlin, firing Canada. You know, obviously these are inside jokes on there. Of course, we always talk about firing Tomlin. Of course, he's not going anywhere because you got to put it in perspective, Steeler Nation. As much as you want to throw and be upset about Tomlin, this was a rebuilding year. This team was on a losing streak. Had like a 2% chance of making the playoffs before winning 3 out of their last 4 and finding a way to sneak in. That's on Tomlin. That's on him getting his team prepared. They played some excellent games against Cleveland and Baltimore. I can't fault him for that. Firing Canada, I don't even know what Canada's offense is yet, because this offense was the exact same offense that I saw last year under Fichtner. The only difference is we had a better running back. We had Najee Harris, who was 4th in the league in rushing. When we had Connor last year, well, he got banged up last year, unfortunately. He put in a Pro Bowl caliber year this year. When he's healthy, he's a hell of a player. But he's not as rugged and he's not as sure-handed as Najee Harris. I'm happy as hell he's on our team, but I don't know what this offense is yet. I'm giving Canada 1 more year, but Butler is gone. I'm done with Butler. Last 3 playoff games we've allowed our opponent to score over 40 points. One of those being Jacksonville, who didn't have an offense. over 40 points against his team, against Cleveland at home, against Kansas City. When we didn't let them score in the first quarter, they put up 40 points in 3 quarters on us. 6 touchdowns on 6 straight drives. That is pathetic. And though you have led the league in sacks for 5 straight years, and that is something to hang your hat on, Butler. Playoff prowess and you being up, it's time for you to get on with your life work as well. Honestly, I'm done. Cooley Man also adds, quit going on and on about Loudermilk and talk about important stuff. Sorry, I'm always going to talk about Loudermilk. I never shut up about Loudermilk. Loudermilk. Got Loudermilk? I like his progression. Hopefully he continues to grow. I can see him being a starter. Bad Cat with the next question. Who will the Steelers bring in to replace Colbert? Who would be an excellent fit, and will they be able to work with Mike Tomlin? So for me, Bad Cat, the only option that I could conceivably see, me being a layman, me not interviewing or understanding GM and the hiring process at all, would be Omar Khan. And Omar Khan is in our house. He currently does all of the Steelers contracts. He is our cap guru. That would be my number one choice. However, if Omar Khan, he's been interviewed for GM at a couple of other places in previous years, Chicago's interviewing him now. If he gets hired somewhere else to be a GM, the Steelers get 2 third-round draft picks. I kind of want to take those 2 third-round draft picks if we're rebuilding. I really do. And hire somebody else. Do I know who else it would be? I don't know. But I know if a minority hire from your system gets hired by another team to be the head coach or to be a GM, you get 2 third-rounders. So, fingers crossed, Chicago, you should hire that Omar Khan guy. Otherwise, if he sticks around, I'm happy for that too. Wig, your question, what's burning on your mind? We'll see. Is there anything resembling reasonable hope that Mason or Haskins may play well enough to at least keep the offensive side of the ball competitive next year? And if they add a couple pieces to the O-line? Yes, I think definitely. Honestly, I think that we only saw Matt Canada's offense in the preseason. Mason was going up and down the field in the preseason. Haskins was going up and down the field in the preseason. Those guys were able to throw the ball down the middle of the field, extend plays, move the football, working in that motion as well. Screens were working for some reason. I know it's preseason, but I'd have to say that could continue to regular season. It seemed like we were able to move the football with Mason in there against Detroit anyway. I mean, we had 2 turnovers in overtime after Mason delivered the football to the receivers and they chose to fumble, or they happened to fumble. They didn't choose to fumble. They obviously wouldn't want to choose to fumble, but they happened to fumble. In overtime, those 2 fumbles cost us the ability to win that game, and we tied. So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to see what this offense can be, but they definitely need O-line help. And I'm with you on that. Any conjecture on Juju returning? And if so, what might that cost? Juju last year, what did he turn down? 13 mil, I think, to be with the Baltimore Ravens and MVP Lamar Jackson. Then he turned down 14 mil to be with Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, another MVP, former MVP, to come back and play for the Steelers for like 12 mil a year for 2 years. So, or 12 mil a year, sorry, we stretched it out over a couple of years. We threw some money in the other section. But came back to play with Big Ben. He's already been talking about, since he came back this season, he put on tape for the entire NFL to see that it can come back and play at a high level, which he did. And that is him already saying, I am putting myself out there. I am thinking of myself as a free agent. That is Juju's choice. But it sounds like to me like Juju's already thinking about not coming back. There's no way he's coming back for a discount. If the Steelers want to sign him, it's going to be around 15 mil a year, 13 to 15 mil a year, 4 years minimum. Is he worth that? I think he's a luxury, to tell you the truth. I really do, especially with a rebuilding team. It's time to start drafting wide receivers again. And we'll get another one in there. Steelers are good at finding them. Since the Steelers are currently projected at 19 or 20 in the draft, what can we realistically expect in terms of players available at that point and at what position? Steelers are going to draft at 20. They made the playoffs, so top 18 picks did not make the playoffs, and I think we are going to be behind the Eagles because the Steelers had the tie. They both had the same amount of wins. So the Eagles will be picking ahead of us. So at 20, I have to go for BPA. I mean, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. Out of offensive linemen, cornerback, strong safety, or defensive lineman, maybe if an inside linebacker falls, maybe if a quarterback falls. If Pickett falls to there, I got to consider Pickett. I really do. Because I have to say, if a pick quarterback, again, falls to the Steelers in the first round, when they didn't do it in 1984 when Marino passed them, Steelers better be picking up Pickett this time. It's a little bit of history for you there, Steeler Nation. Warriors 42 with the next questions. Do we forget quarterback this year and fix the O-line and possibly get a good defensive back in the draft? Yes. I'm with that respect, Warriors. I want a strong safety personally. I think that's top need because the Steelers' defense works with a strong, heavy-hitting, strong safety, and I'm done with this guy that hits the hole and then lets the guy hit him in the hole. All of our other great strong safeties hit the hole hard, and punished running backs coming down, playing downhill, punished wide receivers as they caught the football, not help them comfortably to the ground after the catch. Sorry, Edmonds, I'm done with you. I want a strong safety. That would be my number one. Though strong safeties can fall in the draft to second, third, fourth rounds as well. If we get a good corner there too, we got to start thinking about that because we got to start building our corners. How far in the draft would I be willing to move up next year for someone like Bryce Young? And Warriors, I wouldn't be looking to move up in the draft, and I'm not selling the farm for an Alabama quarterback. I mean, Alabama's got talent up and down the board. I don't really know what I'm getting out of an Alabama quarterback, but if he falls, if the Steelers are already going to be low, this might be a losing season this next coming year. We don't have a franchise quarterback. I mean, Tomlin was able to do it, have a winning season with 2 backups before. Can he do it again? We'll have to see. But if he doesn't, we'll be picking lower. Maybe we will be in the conversation about being able to pick up a great quarterback next year. That's going to have to be next year's question. But I'm not selling the farm, and I'm not looking to give up draft picks during this rebuilding phase at all to get anybody else. We did it because we had Ben at the end. We gave up a draft pick to get Fitzpatrick. That was a smart move. We gave up a draft pick to move up and get Bush. That didn't work out. But we're done using those first rounders and maneuvering first rounders, in my humble opinion, since we do not have a franchise quarterback. We even used the pick to go grab, what was that? The great wide receiver, Santonio Holmes. But we had a franchise quarterback then. So, not looking to wheel and deal picks until we start rebuilding. Paul G., rank your top 3 position in the draft for the following. I know you gave me a bunch of positions: offensive line, defensive line, inside linebacker, cornerback, and quarterback. I'm not going to go into all the draft yet. I will keep your question for my draft show when we get closer to that, but I will touch base on the quarterbacks because that's at least a position that we know we're looking to fix. I mentioned talking about Kenny Pickett earlier in this show. There's 2 other quarterbacks that I do like as possible first rounders. Matt Corral at Ole Miss, another very, very talented guy, a guy that I might actually like, maybe even a little bit better than Pickett as far as for being able to be an all-around quarterback. And then your other guys, if you want to go all the way over the other way, for a run-first quarterback who you can hopefully teach to become a passing quarterback, and that's Malik Willis out of Liberty. Those would be my top 3 guys that I would consider, but probably I think that even drafting Willis in that position would be a little bit of a stretch. I'd consider him more in the second round. Same thing with Corral, because Corral being there, I don't think he'd be best player available if Corral's there as the second pick. But stranger things have happened. But those are my top 3 guys. Drink Iron City, finishing the show as you always do, my sir. Hi, Cope, Stryker. Thanks for doing this. I'm always doing these. You're very welcome, my friend. Overall, what grade would you give each coach this season? You asked me for Tomlin, Canada, Butler, and I believe the special teams coach, I believe you consider him being Bubbles. Tomlin, I give him a B. I'm a little higher than everybody else. I know everybody gets upset. We made it to the playoffs, and this team was not a playoff team. This team was last in the league on yardage on first down. This team was last in the league in rushing offense. This team was last in the league on yardage per pass attempts. How did they even make the playoffs? Tomlin kept this team together. He organized this team to fit what they did well, try to keep the other team scoring down, and when that worked, we could score just enough to win. That was pretty much our Tomlin aspect. If grade in Canada, I'd say not applicable yet, because I don't know what his offense is. This offense looked like the offense from last year with Big Ben running Fichtner's offense, getting that ball out as quickly as possible, and not being able to throw downfield. Looked like he threw downfield better last year before in the first 12 weeks. Then he got banged up and he couldn't throw the ball downfield at all. So since then, it looks like Ben was done. Butler, I give him an A for pass rush. We were awesome at that. Yet again, leading the league, but a D in playoff performance. I think it's time to move on from Butler. I want new blood at defensive coordinator, and I don't want to hire from within. I don't. And then for special teams, probably about a C. Our return game was meh. Our coverage team was a little better than meh. Our kicking was awesome. Boswell's amazing. He's Hall of Famer, or not Hall of Fame, but Pro Bowl level this year. Obviously, when Tucker hits a league record distance field goal to win a game against Detroit, he's going to be the Pro Bowler. Guy's awesome as well. But what was he? 7 for 8 in 50-yard field goals, or 8 for 9 in 50. I think it was 8 for 9 for 50-yard field goals. And I think he's been like 9 for 12 in his career up till this year. That's insane. That is awesome. And that's why I always got to give him a good thing. Up and down, obviously, in the punting game. But the reason why we kept Percy Harvin III perfect in the snap holding. The new snapper, who was a rookie and a new guy this year as well, was perfect. Perfect snaps all season. So I can't be disappointed in that respect, because 2 of our 3 positions for special teams were brand new this year. We did, and that could have affected the way that Boswell kicked, because we had a new snapper, we had a new placeholder. That was still perfect on this season. None of them created any issues with Boswell missing any of his kicks. And Boswell was phenomenal this year. So, gave him about a C+, B-. That's where I'll rank him. Number 2 question from Drink Iron City. Cam Hayward had a little hitch in his interview, knowing it was after a hard loss and a disappointing season. What are the chances of him exiting the Steelers? 0. There is no chance. I know he's upset. He's a competitor. But there is no chance that Cam Hayward leaves this team. He is the team leader on this defense. He's the team captain on this defense. With Ben leaving and our other leader leaving this team, he is our new number 1 leader on this team until we transition to a new franchise quarterback. 0 chance. Third question, Rudolph will beat out Haskins, thus Mason starts. But what are the odds of another quarterback being brought in, and what quality? Cost, number, draft picks. As we talked about earlier, I want to see a free agent quarterback. I'm big on Winston. I think it's a very high chance. No matter what, the Steelers are going to bring in another quarterback. They have to. They've only got 2 in the room. They're going to bring in probably 2 more, because they usually have 4 going into training camp. So one guy's going to be a camp body. One guy's going to be a chance to compete and get thrown in the mix. And if we're talking about Jameis Winston, he's going to have a legitimate shot to starting on this team. Number 4, it seems everybody wants to blame Ben for the offensive woes, but I feel like there wasn't enough of a mixture between offensive coordinator and Ben's skills. Coaching to stubborn to work Is the coaching too stubborn to work or to find a happy medium? Could there have been middle ground between Ben's current skill set and Canada's new offense? The problem was Ben can't throw downfield. And that showed up a lot in our 3rd and longs because we had people running deep patterns. And Ben always took the check down. And everybody goes, oh, Matt Canada, you suck. Why would you call that play? Ben can't throw downfield. Ben took the check down. That's not Matt Canada telling you, hey, Ben, throw the check down. Matt Canada wrote the patterns in for guys being open downfield for a first down. Ben takes the check down because he has to get that ball out in 2 seconds for some reason. It was it for Ben. So I'm not hanging this on the coaches. I think we are going to see what this coordinator is when we have a new quarterback in this system. And we'll see how it is. And we also have to realize, too, that in NFL history, there has been 27 times in NFL history that there has been a quarterback that has thrown for over 380 completions. And Ben was the bottom 2 in yards out of those 27 quarterbacks for 2021 and 2022. Thank you, Alex Kazor, for that great stat coming over from Steeler Depot. But that speaks to it. Ben can throw the ball. He can distribute the ball, just not far downfield. And that's what he was. He was diminishing skills. He was done. And that was it. But thank you, Ben, for those great wins and still throwing together some great victories and some great reasons for Steeler fans to cheer this season, to watch you going out on a high note. Last question. My weather has been very up and down. Last week, minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit. This week, over 50. Do you think I will be able to plant garden crops starting the first part of May, or will it be later, possibly into June? Well, I'm telling you, going off of Stryker's Almanac, I'm thinking mid-May. Bank on it. Make sure you got your seedlings ready to put in the ground mid-May. You'll be good to go. With global warming, I think everything's going to even out for the rest of the year for you. And thanks again, sir. We appreciate these for you. Thank you. You're very welcome, Drink Iron City. Enjoy your dinner that you like cooking, obviously, during this part of the show. And thank you, Steeler Nation, for another great group of questions over from SteelerNation.com. Come on over, check out our sponsor at tseshop.com. We have great giveaways. I know we just gave away a signed, authentic Ben Roethlisberger field jersey. That was a perfect way to celebrate Ben going out. Make sure to go over there and check out all the great signed items at tseshop.com. Come over and check out the vidcast on Tuesdays over on youtube.com/SteelerNation. Tuesday at 7 o'clock, it is live, and you may ask questions live. Check out the great Pittsburgh Sports content at dkpittsburghsports.com. Great stuff on Penn State, on Pitt, on all the local colleges in the great state of Pennsylvania over at dkpittsburghsports.com. Or you can read our great Pittsburgh Steeler contest Steeler-focused articles at SteelerNation.com. Make sure you tweet us at SteelerNation, Instagram us at SteelerNation.com, follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter at _SN Podcast or Instagram Steeler Nation Podcast, and follow your lovely host, Steeler Nation Stryker, SN Stryker, on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm happy to interact with you there. Thanks again for joining us for the Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises, part of the great DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, G. Stryker, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!